Okay, let's get started. Let's kick the tires and light the fires, right? So, let me know how the audio is in the chat here. The motivation for this was actually twofold. One, I just watched, you're I'm sure familiar with him, Aaron Clary, and he did a video to viewers' request, and it was, should I pay back my student loans? And it's interesting because Aaron Clary is not consistent. He vacillates from one extreme to the other. So he published or self-published a couple of books. You probably have heard of them: Bachelor Pad Economics and Enjoy the Decline. And the premise of Enjoy the Decline was basically to capitalize and exploit a society that really doesn't have any social fabric or cohesion, and that is generally, declining, degenerate, etc. People are not held to account for things, etc. It's a very permissive society, and he basically stated in Enjoy the Decline that there's nothing you can do to change that. That is what the majority of the people have voted for, cultural Marxism, etc., wealth redistribution. So you should exploit that. And he says in the book, Enjoy the Decline, if you can, basically get as many gives me dats as you can. If you can qualify for Medicaid, get on it. If you can qualify for a free Obama phone, get one. If you can qualify for food stamps, SNAP, get on it. And yet in this video, one of the viewer was saying, should I pay back? I don't know. He owes, I think he said 50,000 or something, $100,000 for a graduate degree, professional degree. And Aaron Clary was, giving these denouncements saying, you're a parasite, you need to pay it back. That's the taxpayers' money. Um, I don't know if you have been reading the news or like checking out like Breitbart, or I guess watching the news, all of that outrage about families torn apart at the border and children being kept in dog cages. Breitbart ran an article and they said that the amount of money that it takes to provide for, look after an unaccompanied minor, an unaccompanied child who is illegally crossing into the United States is something like $36,000 a year. And they said that's like three times what a child costs to be provided for by their family, by their parents here in the United States. Meaning, if you're a family and you have a child, when you add up the costs of food and shelter and clothing, etc., on average, it's about $12,000. And this article is kind of weird because Breitbart, kind of supposed to be a right leaning rag, right? Like a right leaning outlet. And the whole narrative of this article that we are spending collectively, the United States is spending um, three times on illegals, on children who are not citizens of the United States, children who are not belonging to citizens of the United States, three times what is spent on an American child. And it was, that's not something to be proud of. That should be sparking outrage from people on the right. And yet the tone was very, see, we are taking care of those little beaner children. Well, that should be cause for outrage. They're getting free meals and free beds and free juice boxes. I would like some free Capri Sun for one. Okay, I'm nostalgic. I remember Lunchables. I would like some free Capri Suns. I would like some free juice boxes. Yet I have to pay for them even though I'm a citizen. So again, it boils down to that Marxist, that central tenet of Marxism, from each according to his ability, to each according to his need. So if you have the ability to pay for healthcare, you're going to have to pay for it. But if you're poor, you'll get it for free. So Aaron Clary was basically saying you're a parasite if you don't repay your student loan, etc. Well, everybody else is getting free shit. And that's why I call this video, or I titled it, white people are pay pigs. Okay, so if you don't know the term pay pig, it's a fetish that some people have, that they are older professional type men, and they get off on being the pay pig to a financial dominatrix, somebody who's usually online, and they will extort them for money. And these men give up hundreds or thousands of dollars as the pay pigs to these financial dominatrix type characters. And it's interesting how white people are always so concerned about their credit. They're so concerned about, well, you borrowed money, didn't you? Well, you have to pay it back, don't you know? You have to do the right thing. Nobody else is doing the right thing. You have parents sending their little beaner children north unaccompanied. I mean, can you imagine, like, who wins parent of the year award there? You just tell little Jose go north. You don't care if he gets his head chopped off, he gets diddled in the fields. Coyote eats him. You don't care. You got 10 more lined up, 10 more little Mexican jumping beans. So their children get stuff for free shelter, free medical care, free food, free everything. Yet you have to pay for your child for their necessities, shelter, housing, food, etc., medical care. That's interesting. And nobody else is playing by the rules, okay? And it's not a level playing field, okay? And I remember I grew up in the Midwest, and they have a lot of Indian reservations, and a lot of people are of like mixed heritage. Like, it's very common for the members of the Reds to marry out. So you'll get like people who claim to have Indian heritage, but they look white. And I remember one girl was saying that she got a full ride scholarship to the state university for just being Indian, And think about how on the reservations they allow the Indians to sell gasoline, cigarettes, alcohol at below state levels. So gasoline is kind of universally, every gas station charges the same. You can't undercut another gas station. On the res, they're allowed to undercut. The same thing for cigarettes. They're allowed to sell without that burdensome, that onerous tax that causes like a carton of smokes to cost like, I don't know, $60 if you buy it at the gas station. I mean, a pack of cigarettes is like what? Fucking $8. So I don't know what a carton goes for, fucking $100 or something. But on the res, you can get it for like, I don't know, $40, $30, something like that. So if you're Indian, you're same thing with gambling. You're not allowed as a white person to operate a casino. You can't do that. You're not allowed to operate a casino unless you're part of the tribe in Las Vegas with Sheldon Adelson. But if you're an Indian, you get to operate a gambling establishment, which is against the law for white people. White people and Indians have different laws, different rules to follow. So white people, or I guess I can include black people. Who was that fat nigger? Eric Garner, and he got choked out because he was selling loose cigarettes. The cop put him in a stranglehold because he was selling loose cigarettes. And I've had, like, when I was waiting for a train, like a subway, what was it, a subway or bus or whatever, and somebody came up to me and he was like trying to sell loose cigarettes, and I said, well, are they marijuana? Because then I'd be interested. But he's like, no, just regular cigarettes. I said, no, I don't smoke, and that's illegal actually. For this was a white guy, and he was just like selling like loose cigarettes. I don't know, for $1 or $2, I don't know what, and that's illegal as a white person to sell loose cigarettes, or as a black person to sell loose cigarettes. And that's what got Eric Garner in a chokehold, and that's what led to him having a choking or having a heart attack. But Indians, they play by different rules. They're allowed to have casinos. White person, if they catch you gambling, you're going to prison. So it's interesting, but white people are like the pay pigs collectively. They have this mindset of always having to be in good standing with their creditors. They don't like, the first thing I have to do is dig myself out of debt. No, actually, that's the last thing you should do. The very last thing you should do is pay off other people. The first thing you should do is, look after yourself and your family and your friends. Whether some debt collection agency is satisfied, or whether the debt collector at some agency gets a promotion or a bonus for successfully having an account paid off, is not really my concern. Okay. And white people seem to be unique about this. And it's interesting, like, they say white people have a what is it called, future time orientation. Okay, like they're able to delay gratification and they think long term, and they sort of attribute this to the fact that white people historically lived in colder climates with seasons where they had to plan for the harvest, plant in the spring, harvest in the autumn, store, all the preservatives for winter to last. And so they were future oriented. Meanwhile, people along the equator, it's pretty much temperate year round, and they could just go pluck fruit off the trees, and they had no need to plan for the future. But some of these white people take it to fucking extremes. And I notice it amongst, whatever you want to call it, the manosphere, the MGTOW community, the incels, the TFLers. I listen to some of their videos and they're like, and I had a friend like this in New York City, and he's like, well, my plan is to work for the next 30 years, because he was like focused on his career. He was in sales. Let's just say, he was doing like software sales. And he's like, I'm going to focus on work for the next 30 years so that I can save up enough money and then I can punch out. It's like, whoa, it's like maybe one thing to plan a year in advance, if that, but you're talking about holding to a plan for 30 fucking years. I mean, even Stalin only had 5-year plans, okay? 5-year plans for the Soviet Union. You're talking 30 years. And these people are so, I mean, what are you planning for? You're planning for a future that never will be, is what you're doing. Well, what if I have a family one day? Chances are, if you're TFL incel at age 25 or 30, you're not going to have a family. And these people are so fucking out of touch with reality that they're like talking about, well, I have to save up money now, I have to work hard now for my future family. Your future family is it's a sperm swimming around in your ball sack right now, and you're focused on sending your children to the finest institutions. Your child is like minus 25 years old. He's swimming around in your nutsack right now. Why don't it's not really a fair, anybody who would be TFL incel and they can't get a date, they can't get a match off Tinder, they don't have a single woman's phone number stored in their cell phone. Okay, that's how I put it. They don't have a single female friend, female acquaintance, female number stored on their cell phone. Anybody who would be in that predicament, in that situation, and would be talking about their future children going to, sending them to Andover Academy or Phillips Exeter Academy or some private school, I would think would be certifiably insane. I mean, you would have to be insane to be it's like a hobo talking about life insurance or something. Or you have nothing. You have nothing of value. You have no dependents. You're like a rolling stone, and you're talking about life insurance. There's a disconnect here. You have nothing. And these TFLs and incels, they don't seem to realize sort of the one upside to living this life is you don't really have to partake of the system. And yet they keep their nose to the pavement, and they're like, oh, I just have to work for the next 35 years. There's no guarantee you're going to live to see retirement. If you ever take a look at the obituaries, people seem to be dying at a very early age, like in their 50s and 60s. They're not living into their 90s. Okay. So I don't know why these people who are not, to my eye, in the best of physical health to begin with at age 18, 25. They don't look so good at 25. I don't think you got another 75 years in you, my friend. I don't think so. And even say by some miracle you do make it to your 50s or 60s. You want to save up money so that you can what? You can savor your dotage, you can savor being an old man. Once I'm an old man, if I make it to old age, you can just feed me cat food. Okay. Once you're old, everything is shot on you. Your taste buds are gone. Your sense of smell is gone. Your mind has deteriorated. Why do you want to save money when you're basically you're a shell of your former self? You're going to save money for what? So that you can eat oysters and lobster when you don't even have a sense of taste anymore? I mean, it's the white people. Ooh, uh, it's they almost make the stereotypical neurotic Jew of New York look carefree by comparison. I put it that way. There's a stereotype like the Woody Allen character. He's real high strung. He's a hypochondriac. He's, that's a stereotype of New York City Jews, that they're neurotic. I mean, white people, especially white millennials, it seems. I think baby boomers or the people who came before them, who are more the hippies, they were more carefree. They lived in the moment. And millennials, even at a young age, they're so neurotic. Um, I remember somebody in graduate school. He was like 23 or something, and he got like his first paycheck for being like a researcher, a research assistant, and he was like celebrating the fact that he had started to save for retirement at age 23. There is so much that can go wrong between here and when you plan to retire that it doesn't make sense to plan for retirement. There's a video on there on YouTube where the guy says why you shouldn't save for retirement, and he's right, because he talks about paying down or spending down, which is when it comes to Medicare, and everybody at some point their health will fail. Government assistance does not cover medical treatment until basically you have spent through your resources. So if you end up hospitalized for long durations, if you end up in a nursing home facility, like a long-term care facility, the costs that are associated with that are like $100,000 a year. So they will seize all of your assets. They will seize your property, your home. That doesn't get to go to your children or grandchildren. That goes to the government, who then liquidates all of your assets and then starts to pay via Medicare, Medicaid. So all of the stuff that you saved up for, you don't get to pass along or leave behind. That goes to the state. Okay, property, houses, vehicles, that all gets liquidated, and that's what's called spending down. So, but yeah, this video by Aaron Clarey, you can check it out. He waffles, like I said. He wrote a whole book on how to sort of exploit the system, and the best way to put it is, it's like everybody is there's a piñata with candy inside, and you have an agreement. Okay, it's going to be orderly. When that piñata splits open and spills candy all over the ground, we will what will be single file. We'll each take 5 pieces of candy, and that's the agreement. But then when the piñata splits open, you have a few children. They scramble and they start taking all the candy. They start putting it in their pockets. If you're on the sidelines, are you going to stand there with your dick in your hand saying, well, I thought we had an agreement. I thought we had an understanding. If you do that, you're going to go home without any candy. Okay. Unless you join in the melee and the scramble for candy from the piñata, you're not going to get anything. Okay. So other people are not following the rules. They abide by different rules, and yet white people are going to continue playing by the rules. It makes no sense. Okay, it makes no sense. People who aren't even citizens view this country as having the responsibility for the entire world. Okay, they send their children up north uh, and entrust them to the border agents to look after them. The Mexican parents aren't wringing their hands over how do I provide for little Jose, for little Gonzalez. They say that's America's fucking problem. They say it's your problem. And yet, as a white person, as an American citizen, you're going to be wringing your hands over being in good standing with your creditors and getting all of your affairs in order before you exit this world. It makes no sense. Okay, so that video got to me, and that article on Breitbart about people, like they were almost like it's this defensive attitude. They're like, we're not putting little Mexican children in cages. We spend uh, three times what we spend on the American children. That's not a good thing. That's not something to celebrate. That's not something to be proud of. That you're spending more on foreigners, more on foreign children than you are on domestic children. And it's actually worse than that because, of course, the government is spending 100%. It's covering all the costs for these migrant children, whereas it's the parents who are actually spending 1/3, $12,000 per year on children. The government is not spending $12,000 per year on American children. That's covered by their parents. So it's even worse than that. And these people on Breitbart are like, I don't know how to describe it. They're like gleeful that, see, we're actually spending a lot of money on these migrant children. That's not a good thing. They should be in dog cages, okay? They should be in dog cages, and we should rattle the cages, okay? We should bang on the cages. Uh, it would make more sense for the American government to look after stray dogs here in America. At least they're, at least the fucking, stray golden retriever was born on American soil. At least its ancestors lived here in America. But we're euthanizing animals that did nothing wrong. I mean, they did nothing wrong. They didn't actually break any laws, unlike the Mexican children and the Mexican parents who did. They did break the law. But so we're euthanizing animals. We're euthanizing animals that did nothing wrong, that their ancestors, like I said, of the dog or the cat or whatever, they go back generations here in the United States. We're putting them down, but we're squandering $36,000 a year to provide juice boxes and daycare, and the border agents are giving the baba to the little Mexican baby. It's bizarre. So that's the message here. Okay, white people are, they have put that role upon themselves as being pay pigs. That's what they are. Okay, they have put themselves in that situation. Okay, it's like analogous to a professional, some 50-year-old guy who gets off on being financially dominated. He pays that dominatrix to extort him, bribe him, etc., blackmail him, and whatever, he gets his jollies being a pay pig for a financial dominatrix. Nobody else cares who's paying for it. Nobody else has these pangs of guilt about taking a penny without leaving a penny. Okay, the little tray on the register, take a penny, leave a penny policy, where you can put your change, and if it comes to $10.05, you can take the nickel, so you don't have to break a 20. Only white people are having pangs of anxiety and pangs of remorse for taking a penny but not leaving a penny. You have these people and it's not just a black thing or Latino thing, it's an Asian thing, a Pakistani thing, an Indian thing. Once they get to Canada or Germany, they import their elderly sick parents, they bring in their sick uncles, their sick great aunts, and they all get access to the socialized medical system. They don't care that they never paid into it. Only white people have this feeling of remorse that, well, I didn't really earn it. I borrowed money from the taxpayers and I have to make good on it. I have news for you. Okay. They just print off more money. Okay. Steven Mnuchin, head of the Federal Reserve, right? No, what is he? What is Steven Mnuchin? Let me look him up. He looks like a little worm. Steven Mnuchin. What is he? The head of the Treasury, Secretary of the Treasury. And he's married to Louise Linton, who is an actress. So Louise Linton is like the trophy wife to this little worm, Stephen Mnuchin. And she always dresses like in $50,000 outfits, like $10,000 shoes and a $20,000 gown. She sort of has like a Corella Deville vibe to her. Like I'm pretty sure, she has a coat made out of the Dalmatian puppies. Like sort of like how Mr. Burns wanted to make puppies into a coat. Um, that's the vibe I get. So when you pay back, you're just paying for for Stephen Mnuchin, that little worm. Maybe he can buy, his wife some nice accessories. Okay, it's all funny money. They just print it off. They print off more money. But white people are going to wring their hands about getting good. The first thing I need to do is pay off my debts. No, no, that's the last thing you do. The last thing you do is pay other people. Okay, priorities: yourself, your family, your friends, your community, and then everybody else. Okay. But white people are always, they have this guilt. They're racked with guilt about their credit score, their credit score. Okay. If you fuck up your credit royally and you destroy it, well, what does that mean? Um, okay, you're not going to qualify for a mortgage. You're not going to be able to get a leased Escalade. Again, if you are incel TFL, why does this matter to you? Why would a single bachelor man, I mean, Aaron Clarey called it bachelor pad economics. He didn't call it farmstead economics or McMansion economics. Okay. If you're a single male living TFL or incel, chances are you're going to continue in that situation. So why would you be concerned about your future family when you don't even have you can't even get a date? Okay, you can't even get a date, and yet you have these castles. You're building castles in the sky about your future family and providing for them and sending Junior to private school. Junior right now is swimming around in your ball sack. Okay, he doesn't exist, and he's never going to exist. Partly because many American women are choosing to go childless, and there's a lot of self-deception in the MGTOW community or the manosphere, the red pill community. Some people have done videos on I guess the birth rate amongst millennials is very low, or it's disconcertingly low, and they attribute this to men walking away. Not in the article, but the MGTOW content producers, the manosphere content producers, they attribute this to men being wary of getting entangled into relationships where they can be divorce raped. Again, if you're a minimalist, what do you have to lose? Okay. It's sort of that expression, the man with nothing has nothing to lose. If you're living a minimalist lifestyle, what assets are going to be seized? What wages are going to be garnished? If you're truly a minimalist, okay, and if you're getting by on very little, it's sort of like that old episode of South Park where it's like the government agents, like the CIA agents, get dispatched to Ethiopia, and they're trying to like track down an alien spaceship, and they think Starvin Marvin knows where it is, and they go into his mud hut, and they're like, if you don't play ball with us, if you don't tell us the location of the spaceship, we're going to take everything you own. And they look around, there's nothing in this mud hut. It's Ethiopia, and he has like a little like hollowed out dried gourd on a shelf, and they're like, yeah, if you don't tell us where the spaceship is, we're going to take this little gourd thingy. It's like, oh, I don't know why, if you are TFL or incel, why you would why you would commit yourself to working the next 30 years. Like you want to spend 60 hours a week getting ahead in your career. You sound no different than a careerist, a career woman, a feminist. That's what they talk about. That they're choosing not to have children because they're focusing on themselves, on their career. That when you say that as a man, you sound exactly like these career women do. So I don't understand why, when it's very unlikely that you're ever going to have a family, why you would be planning for a future. I mean, it's sick in a way. It's like you're a single man who can't get a date, but you're going to have like this sprawling house, and like you're going to start planning. You're like, that room's where the nursery goes. That room is where the, and you don't even have a girlfriend, but you have like a crib from IKEA or from Bed Bath and Beyond. You have like a crib and the mobile, the thing that spins above the bed, and you decorate the room with little dinosaurs. It's like I would first focus on getting a girl's phone number rather than planning on sending your kid to private school. Okay, that's like 25 years, if ever, down the road. And so you owe people money. Okay, I did a video on this before, why debt is not a bad thing. There aren't debtors' prisons. Okay, back in Victorian England in the 1800s, or I should say Dickensian England, they would put like these, what were they called? Not husk ships, Hulk ships, and they were old ships that were no longer seaworthy, and they basically refurbished them into floating prisons, and they were called debtors' prisons, and they moored them off the shore, maybe like half a mile from, or like I don't know, quarter mile from land, far enough that you couldn't jump overboard and swim, and they were crowded. They were overrun with disease, very terrible conditions. Okay, it's not. We do have a prison industrial complex. Okay, and all these people talking about, oh, how unfair it is. Yes, it is unfair, not to the prisoners, but to the people who finance the prison system, which is the taxpayers. The people in prison are having a damn good time. Okay, it's not like the conditions are squalid and they're kept in conditions like Andersonville prison during the Civil War, where people were starving and they were like living skeletons. People in prison have it damn nice. Okay, and if it costs $36,000 a year to care after little Jose, the unaccompanied minor going across the border, I think it's something like $100,000 for every incarcerated adult. $100,000 for every incarcerated adult, and that's all being paid for by the taxpayers. And they get medical care. They get fed plenty. They have internet access. Um, they get shelter, etc. In POW camps where they kept the Germans, if you want to look up Eisenhower's, what were they called? The Rhineland prisons. They were basically open air prisons where they kept German POWs. Now, they didn't call them POWs because if they did, they would have to abide by the Geneva Convention. So they just called them disarmed enemy combatants. And that was a nice, clever way to sidestep the issue of the Geneva Convention. And millions of disarmed German soldiers at the end of World War II who had surrendered were basically put in open fields, open air prisons with no shelter, surrounded by barbed wire, and they were left to starve and die. And they had to dig holes in the ground for shelter, etc. I think it was called Eisenhower's, because he was the supreme Allied commander, Eisenhower's Rhineland prisons. People in prison have it pretty nice, okay? And all this talk about, oh, everybody gets raped in prison, no, they don't. Okay, there's not. They have, that's depictions from Hollywood. Okay, that's not reality. But white people are always they're always so got to dot every I and cross every T. And they have this like peculiar sense of righteousness, like, well, I'm not going to take free stuff. That's beneath me. I have my dignity as a man. No, actually, if you were a real man, you would be spending more time with your children rather than slaving away in an office and leaving your children with the Mexican nanny, or leaving your children with the lesbian teacher who's filling their brain with poisonous shit, with poisonous ideology. If you were a real man, you would be teaching your child. You would be spending time with your child. Instead, you slave away at your corporate job and you entrust your child to the state. And you think that makes you a man. You think that makes you a man that you pay other people to take care of your own children. No, I think a real man spends time with his own children. And these people, they really do have some toxic masculinity in them. These people like Roosh, their plan, like their idea of life is the 50s, where the guy goes off to work, the woman takes care of the kids, and the husband doesn't want anything to do with his own children. He comes home, wants to read the paper, sort of like the Wonder Years, like Jack Arnold. He puts on his tie, goes to work at Norcom, comes home, grunts, sits in front of the TV. You think that makes you a good father, that you provide materially for your children and that's it? I don't think so. Okay, that you're a pretty shitty father if that's all you do. Um, but white people, hand me down things, hand me down material possessions. White people are too good for. White people are too good for coats from a coat drive. We see this all the time, right? Like donate coats for homeless, for poor children. When it's back to school in the fall, every town you'll see on the local news, they're organizing a school, what is it called? Like school supply drive. And it's for like black children whose parents don't give a shit, and donate pencils and binders. When it's winter, donate coats. And white people, that's too good. They're too good for that. They're too good for that. They have to shop at Bonobo. They have to shop at these upscale, Macy's. They have to shop there, the Bonton, whatever. I know there are trendier places. Let's say like Diesel, H&M, things like that. That's where white people shop, right? And it's interesting how, and the same thing for cars. They're like, well, if you destroy your credit, how are you ever going to lease a Lamborghini? Well, I guess I'm not. I guess I'm not going to be leasing a luxury car in my lifetime. But again, I don't know why you would want to. Again, like, are you too good for a used car? Of course, white people have no qualms about hand-me-down, secondhand sexual partners, right? That's white people shit. White people shit. Everybody has, 10, 20 partners. If you ask a female, if you ask a woman, how many men have you slept with? That's outrageous. How dare you ask such a question? It used to be you never ask a lady her age. Now it's you never ask a lady how many dicks she's had inside of her. So it's interesting. And it cuts both ways. I mean, I can understand women not wanting to be with these creepy pickup artists who they boast about. I've slept with 100 women. I've slept with 1,000 women. You basically sound like a walking petri dish. You sound like a walking biohazard. So I'm not employing a double standard here. I think it's disgusting both ways to have promiscuous sex. So white people, they're too good for hand-me-down clothes or secondhand clothes or a secondhand vehicle, buying a used vehicle. They're too good for that. They need that new car smell. But their partner, their spouse doesn't have a new spouse smell. No. Their spouse spent their teens and 20s experimenting sexually. Maybe for a while they identified as a bisexual. Maybe for a time in college they were a lesbian. Who knows? Maybe they had some experience abroad, when backpacking. So white people are too good for a used vehicle or for, oh, I could never wear pants that another person has worn, even if they're dry cleaned or whatever. Oh, that's disgusting. How could you wear a jacket that didn't, that another person owned? That's disgusting. Well, you're marrying somebody that was intimate with dozens of people before you. You're marrying somebody who proclaimed or professed to love another man over and over again. Every time she was in a relationship, I'm sure that word was thrown around, the L word. Why, you're the seventh man that she claims to have loved. Wow. So somebody says here, white people buy a $6,000 sofa. Yeah. They go to Steinhofels or Raymore and Flanagan or whatever, and they spend a fortune on you have to buy the mansion, the McMansion, and then you have to fill it with furniture, right? Um, so getting a secondhand sofa, that's beneath white people. White people, they can't deign to do that. That's stooping too low for white people as they hold their nose. But secondhand sexual partners, and that's being very generous. It's more like, it's traded hands 10 times, a dozen times, 2 dozen times, who knows. Some girls, they're precocious sexually. They start having sex at 13, so by the time 33 rolls around, who knows how many partners it might be. I maintain a lot of women don't pursue relationships. They're not particularly sexual, but over 20 years, even at a snail's pace, you start to accumulate partners. So that's white people for you. That type of thinking. And most men would disagree with me. They'd be like, "Oh, a virgin? Oh, that's horrible. Like, I want a girl with some miles on her. I want a girl who knows how to do some wild shit." I've never had enough. I've never been in a relationship long enough where I tired of vanilla sex. So all of these people, and they're like, "You got to keep things spicy. You got to keep things exciting in the bedroom." I'm sorry, I don't need to do some human centipede shit because I never got to the point in a relationship where it was sex, like normal missionary style sex was considered boring. I never got to that stage. So I guess other men, they're such Don Juans that it takes upside down ass eating to get their rocks off anymore. So that's white people for you. Too good for a secondhand shirt, but marrying somebody, and that cuts across both genders, who's had a dozen previous sexual partners who claim to have loved 10 people before you. Well, I'm sure the 11th time it's for real. All those times before where I thought I was in love, totally wrong. I was totally mistaken. Um, oh, somebody says here, oh, only white people are okay with swinging and cuckoldry. I have to do a different video on this. This is, I think, vastly. It's a meme. It's overstated. It's sort of like the idea of blow up dolls. If you go to like Spencer's Gifts, they have the blow up doll with the mouth. I don't really think men in the 80s or 90s or whenever those things came around were ever using blow up dolls. Okay, it was a joke. It was a meme. Okay, um, and this is what the members of the tribe are very good at doing. They're some editor, writer, or contributor at BuzzFeed or Vice. They'll come across one or two instances of some despicable, degrading, weird, twisted shit. And they'll make like a whole article about this. And they'll say, what's behind this startling rise in men wanting to see their own women fucked in front of them? What's behind this emergent trend? Just because you interview 3 or 4 degenerates doesn't a trend make. Okay, they could do the same thing with bestiality. What is behind this sudden rise in bestiality? Okay, there have always been crazy, sadistic perverts. Okay, going back to the Marquis de Sade. And people were trying to say, like, oh, I was on Chateau Artiste, another bullshit website. And some guy was trying to defend, like, having, like, really, like, twisted, kinky sex. Like, oh, yes, women love being spat on and having their heads punched during sex. They love that shit. And he goes, it's totally natural, bro. The Marquis de Sade said so. No, the Marquis de Sade was regarded as an extremely dangerous, evil maniac, and I think he was even imprisoned for a time. It's only in modern times that he's celebrated as some type of hero or some type of vanguard, some type of pioneer who forged the path for sexual freedom. If you actually read his work, like I think what was it, 100 Days in Sodom, he talks about ritualistic. He basically is, it's Pizzagate, okay, like John Podesta shit. You read the work by Marquis de Sade, 100 Days in Sodom, I think, and it's about four noblemen who lock themselves up like in a castle for the summer, and they have children brought to them, and it's all about sadistically sexually torturing children, sacrificing children, murdering children. That's not normal. Okay, that's sucking on toes and you know hostile shit, like the movie Hostel, where people were being sacrificed and sadistically tortured to death. We're kind of on, we're at different ends of the spectrum right there. But I don't believe this phenomenon of cuckoldry really exists. It exists in pornography. Okay, lots of shit exists in pornography that don't exist in the real world. Um, I mean, it's like I said, why are the porn stars? They're all jacked with big dicks, but all of these tall, fit men I see alone, and the guys with women are the ones who would never make it in porn. They probably have a 2-inch dick, and they're flabby and out of shape. Those are the ones I actually see with women. So yeah, there are plenty of things you see in porn. I never see an Indian man in porn. I never see an Asian man in porn, but I see plenty of Indian men and Asian men with white women in relationships. So I don't think pornography is a mirror for reality. Okay, I mean, we never see Asian men or Indian men with women. So according to pornography, I should never see Sandeep with a white woman, and yet I do. Yet I do. I never see an Asian man in pornography, but I see plenty of Asian men in relationships. So, um, but yeah, that's white people for you. Too good for a secondhand sofa they find on the street, put out for trash, or a TV put out for trash. I mean, I've salvaged stuff from the garbage, not literally digging in garbage, but stuff people had put out, like in the previous apartment building that I lived in New York City. There were quite a few people. It was a big building, and they would put stuff out for trash, like electronics. And I picked up like a $400 DJ turntable, like a record player, but it was specifically designed for DJs. And it even came like in the case. And all I had to do was replace the stylus. All I had to do was replace the needle. And I looked it up. It was like worth $450 with the protective case. So that was like for DJs to travel to events with. And it's like, oh, so I got that, and I could play my old LP records that I got like at garage sales. Um, my Judas Priest records, um, for like a $20 stylus. That's weird. But, when I picked up, I tried other stuff. If somebody had a TV, like I tried it. Okay, it's busted. Put it back. But hand me down sexual partners, hand me down spouses. Well, it's like, Henry VIII, that song by Herman's Hermits. I'm Henry VIII. I am. I've been buried what is it? I've been married 7 times before. All these hand-me-down spouses. Well, I was married twice. My current wife, she's 3 times divorced, and that goes back even like, who was it? Elizabeth Taylor in the 50s, and she was like married 6 times. Like who? Like Joe DiMaggio and this person and that person. Um, but hand-me-down jewelry. Some little turquoise beads. Elizabeth Taylor was too good for that. Elizabeth Taylor, she was a celebrity. It's like, modern day celebrities. They're of the same status. Like Kim Kardashian, right? Like she wears nothing but the finest. She would never be caught dead by the paparazzi in something that wasn't name brand, something that wasn't luxury. But she does, pornography. She, has been with how many guys before her current husband. And the same thing for Louise Linton, Stephen Mnuchin, the Secretary of the Treasury's wife. All of these designer handbags, designer clothes, name brand clothes. Each outfit costs $20,000, $30,000, but she would never be seen in capris or shorts or denim. That's interesting, but she was previously married, and now she remarried, the Secretary of the Treasury. So hand me down spouses, hand me down sexual partners, like that song by the Guess Who, don't give me no hand me down world. It's interesting. At least the hippies were non-materialistic. They would wear, hand-me-down clothes or secondhand clothes from the thrift store. But white people today, that doesn't fly. It's got to be name brand. It's got to be name brand, even though they're with somebody who's been in 10 previous relationships where they thought they loved them, but 11th time's the charm. All those times before they were wrong. So anyway, I just wanted to do that rant. The ways of white people, or how white people choose to make themselves pay pigs. Nobody's forcing them to. I mean, they've been conditioned to think that they have to be pay pigs, but they are choosing to be pay pigs. That's important. They are choosing to be pay pigs. That's about it. I'm out.